Hello and welcome, my dear listeners. I'm Gautam Rai on behalf of genfitpulse.com. Today, I welcome you on board for the second episode of our exciting podcast on the very exciting topic brain rot and doom scrolling. For details, genfitpulse.com is there. Please go and read the amazing articles. Now, please welcome our amazing host for the detailed podcast on brain rot and doom scrolling. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody, for our second deep dive.
Oh, it's great to be back.
Yeah, it is. And we're really excited to kind of unpack more fascinating information that, maybe you only just kind of skim the surface of. But speaking of surfaces, have you visited zenfitpulse.com lately?
It's a treasure trove.
It really is chock full of incredible articles on health and fitness, so seriously, go check it out.
Yeah.
But for now, let's plunge into today's subject, the intriguing and slightly unsettling world of brain rot and doom scrolling.
Ooh, that's quite a title.
It is, right?
Catchy, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they perfectly capture this growing concern about our digital habits and how they might be affecting us.
Yeah, they've certainly caught on, haven't they? And for informal terms, I think they do point to something quite significant, this idea that maybe our constant scrolling isn't as harmless as we think.
Yeah, and we've all experienced that feeling, I think, right, of spending hours on our phones and kind of emerging feeling mentally drained and fuzzy. Is that what we mean by brain rot?
That's definitely part of it, yeah. Brain rot, as it's called. It refers to that mental fatigue, the forgetfulness, and even the difficulty concentrating that can come with excessive, digital consumption. It's like our brains are overloaded and struggling to keep up.
So it's not just about wasting time, it's about potentially hindering our cognitive abilities.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, that's a bit unnerving.
Yeah.
And how does doom scrolling fit into all this? We all scroll through our feeds, right? When does it become doom scrolling?
I think it's a matter of both intention and content. Doom scrolling isn't about casually catching up with friends or finding recipes. It's about actively seeking out, negative or upsetting news, even when it starts to make us feel anxious or worse. It's like we can't look away from a train wreck even though we know it's going to upset us.
It's almost like we're drawn to it, even though we know it's not good for us. What's driving that behavior? Is it just morbid curiosity?
I think it's probably a mix of factors, fear, curiosity, even a sense of obligation to stay informed, even if that information is distressing. And interestingly, research suggests that doom scrolling really spiked during the COVID-19 pandemic.
That makes sense. I mean, the world felt so uncertain back then, and information, even negative information, felt like a way to regain some control. But why are so many of us still doing it, even though the pandemic has subsided?
That's where the sneaky social media algorithms come in, remember? They're designed to keep us engaged, and unfortunately, negativity is really effective at that. Our brains are wired to respond strongly to threats, so we kind of get caught in this loop of seeking out negative content because it triggers those strong reactions, and the algorithms just keep feeding us more and more.
It's almost like we're training our brains to crave negativity.
In a way, yeah.
But this brain rot idea, what's actually happening in our minds when we doom scroll for hours on end, can't be good, right?
Well, imagine your brain as a computer, with limited processing power. When we bombard it with constant stimulation, especially a barrage of negative news and information, it's bound to struggle. It's like trying to run a dozen demanding programs at once. Eventually, the system starts to slow down and crash.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I know I've had those moments where I realize I've been scrolling for an hour and I can't even remember what I've seen. Is that brain rot in action?
It could very well be.
Yeah.
Researchers describe brain rot as a state of mental fatigue, a sort of fog that descends on our thinking. You might experience forgetfulness, have trouble concentrating, and just generally feel mentally drained. And what's even more concerning is this potential link between doom scrolling brain rot and more serious conditions like anxiety and depression.
Okay, now that's worrisome. It sounds like this mindless scrolling habit could have some serious consequences.
Oh.
Let's delve into that connection a bit further, especially the link between doom scrolling and anxiety. Our sources mention that negative news can actually fuel anxiety. How does that work?
It all comes down to our brain's built-in alarm system, specifically the amygdala, which is essentially our fear center every time we encounter something negative or threatening. The amygdala activates releasing stress hormones like cortisol to help us deal with the danger, and it's a vital survival mechanism. The problem is with doom scrolling, we're essentially keeping that alarm system on high alert all the time.
So it's like we're constantly in fight or flight mode, even if there's no real danger present.
Precisely. And over time, that chronic state of stress can lead to heightened anxiety, making us more prone to panic attacks, irritability,
Yeah.
even physical symptoms like headaches and digestive issues. It's as if we're slowly but surely stressing ourselves sick through our phones.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. It sounds like we're unknowingly putting our bodies and minds through a lot. And if I remember correctly, our sources also pointed to information overload as playing a role in anxiety and depression.
Hmm.
How does that fit in?
Remember that computer analogy we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, when we doom scroll, we're essentially flooding our brains with an immense amount of information, much of it negative and distressing. And that leads to cognitive overload, making it difficult for our brains to process everything effectively.
So it's not just the emotional weight of the negative news, but also the sheer volume of information that's overwhelming our brains.
You got it. And that overload contributes to that mental fatigue and difficulty concentrating we were talking about earlier, hallmarks of brain rot. And when our brains are struggling to keep up, it becomes much harder to manage stress and regulate our emotions, which can increase our susceptibility to anxiety and even depression. It's a vicious cycle.
This is all starting to sound pretty grim, and I'm guessing there's more to uncover. Our sources mentioned something called negativity bias. What exactly is that, and how does it play into this doom scrolling cycle?
Negativity bias. Now that's where things get really interesting.
Well, I'm all ears. That's why I love our deep dives. Always something new to learn. So tell me more about this negativity bias and how it affects us.
Well, negativity bias. It's our brain's inherent tendency to pay more attention to negative information than positive information. It's like Velcro for bad news and Teflon for good news.
Okay.
And from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense. Being able to quickly identify threats was crucial for our survival.
Right. So we're hardwired to focus on the bad stuff, but in today's world where we're bombarded with negative news 24/7, doesn't that become a problem?
Absolutely. Doom scrolling plays right into this negativity bias, essentially hijacking our attention systems because of this inherent bias. Every negative news story, every disturbing image, every upsetting social media post, it triggers our brain's alarm bells, even if it doesn't pose a direct threat to us personally.
It's like we're training our brains to be constantly on edge, always looking out for the next bad thing. So we've talked about the connection between doom scrolling and anxiety, but what about depression? How does constantly consuming negative content contribute to feeling depressed?
Well, depression often thrives on feelings of hopelessness and despair. And unfortunately, doom scrolling can paint a very distorted picture of reality, making the world seem far more negative and dangerous than it actually is. It's like looking at the world through a pair of, dark tinted glasses.
So it's not that the bad things we see while doom scrolling aren't real. It's that we're not getting a balanced perspective. We're missing out on the good things that are happening too.
Exactly. We're only seeing a sliver of reality, and it's a very skewed sliver that we're missing out on all the positive, hopeful, and inspiring things that are also happening in the world. And that constant exposure to negativity can really wear down our resilience and make it harder to appreciate the good in our own lives.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. We doom scroll, which feeds our negativity bias, which then fuels anxiety and depression. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And our sources mentioned that this isn't just happening on a psychological level. There's actually a neurological impact as well that sounds a bit intense. Can you explain what's going on in our brains?
Our brains are incredibly adaptable, constantly rewiring themselves based on our experiences and habits. The problem is when we engage in excessive doom scrolling, we're essentially training our brains to become more reactive to negativity. We're strengthening those neural pathways associated with fear and anxiety while weakening the pathways that help us stay calm and rational.
So it's like we're building up the fear center of our brain while neglecting the parts responsible for logic and emotional control.
That's a great way to put it. Research suggests that doom scrolling weakens the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational thinking, decision-making, and emotional regulation. And at the same time, it overactivates the amygdala, that fear center we were talking about earlier.
So it's like a double whammy, weakening the rational part of our brain while strengthening the fear-driven part. No wonder we feel so mentally and emotionally drained after hours of scrolling. This is all pretty heavy stuff.
Right.
But I'm also feeling a glimmer of hope, knowing that we have the power to change these habits.
You're right. While the neurological impact of doom scrolling is concerning, it's important to remember that our brains are remarkably plastic. They can change and adapt throughout our lives, which means we're not stuck with these negative patterns.
So if we can rewire our brains for the worse through doom scrolling, we can also rewire them for the better by changing our habits, right? What can we do to break free from this doom scrolling trap and start cultivating healthier digital habits?
That's the empowering part of all of this. There are a lot of practical strategies we can implement to reclaim control over our digital lives and nourish our mental well-being. It's all about making conscious choices and taking small but consistent steps in the right direction.
Well, let's hear them. I'm ready to ditch the doom and gloom and start building a healthier relationship with technology.
The first step is to set boundaries. It's so easy to get sucked into the endless scroll, but most smartphones now have built-in features that allow you to set daily time limits for specific apps. Decide how much time you're comfortable spending on social media each day and stick to those limits.
It's like creating a budget for your attention. You're deciding where to invest your mental energy. Instead of letting it get drained by endless scrolling, what else can we do?
Be mindful of the content you're consuming. Remember, those algorithms we talked about, they're not necessarily working in your best interest. Take control of your feed. Unfollow accounts or sources that consistently leave you feeling anxious, depressed, or overwhelmed, and seek out accounts that share positive or inspiring content, or those that focus on topics you're genuinely interested in learning about.
So it's about being intentional with what we allow into our mental space. It's not about avoiding negativity altogether, but about being more discerning and choosing to focus on things that uplift and inspire us.
Exactly, and don't underestimate the power of mindfulness apps like Headspace or Calm. Offer guided meditations and mindfulness exercises that can help you become more aware of your thoughts, feelings. And even those urges to doom scroll, practicing mindfulness can help you create a little space between your thoughts and your actions, giving you more control over how you respond to those urges.
That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes we just need to pause, take a breath, and ask ourselves, do I really need to scroll right now? Or is there something else I could be doing that would make me feel better?
And sometimes the best thing you can do for your mental and emotional well-being is to simply unplug, schedule regular digital detox periods throughout the week where you completely disconnect from your devices, go for a walk in nature, read a book, spend time with loved ones, or engage in any activity that helps you disconnect from the digital world and reconnect with yourself and the real world.
I love that it's like hitting the reset button for your brain, and it reminds me of something our sources mentioned about replacing doom scrolling with other activities.
That's a great point. Think about activities that bring you joy and make you feel good. It could be reading, listening to music, gardening, spending time in nature, exercising, pursuing a creative hobby, volunteering, anything that nourishes your soul and brings you a sense of peace and fulfillment.
So it's not just about cutting out the bad, but about replacing it with something good, filling that void with activities that truly make us feel alive.
Exactly. It's about creating a healthier and more balanced relationship with technology, one that serves us rather than controls us.
I have to say, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. I'm feeling inspired to make some changes in my own digital life, but before we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to our listeners. What's the key takeaway here? Why should they care about this connection between doom scrolling and their mental health?
It's easy to dismiss doom scrolling as a harmless habit, but the reality is it can have a profound impact on our mental and physical well-being. It can exacerbate anxiety, contribute to depression, and even impact our brain function, making it harder to focus, think clearly, and regulate our emotions.
It's like we're unknowingly sabotaging ourselves with every swipe and scroll.
But the good news is we're not helpless. We have the power to change our habits, to break free from this doom scrolling trap, and to create a healthier relationship with technology. By understanding the problem and implementing these practical strategies, we can reclaim control over our digital lives and start nourishing our minds instead of numbing them.
So it's about awareness action and making conscious choices that support our well-being, but we don't have to do it alone.
Exactly. There are resources, tools, and communities like the amazing folks at ZenFit Pulse who can offer support and guidance on this journey. Speaking of ZenFit Pulse, if you're looking for more insightful content on health and fitness, be sure to visit their website at zenfitpulse.com. They have a wealth of information to help you thrive in all aspects of your life.
Absolutely. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive to join our ZenFit Pulse community. We'd love to have you along for the ride as we continue to explore fascinating topics like this one.
It's all about learning, growing, and supporting each other along the way. So tell me what resonated most with you today. What are some small changes you're thinking about implementing in your own digital life?
I think what struck me most is how much power we actually have over our brains. It's easy to feel like we're at the mercy of our technology and these algorithms, but we really can rewire our brains for the better by changing our habits. That's pretty empowering. What about you?
What resonates with me is the interconnectedness of it all, how our digital habits, our mental health, and even the structure of our brains are all intertwined. It's a complex web, but understanding those connections gives us the knowledge and agency to make positive changes.
Absolutely. It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, And each insight reveals a new part of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
If you're feeling overwhelmed by the negativity in the world, or even just by the constant influx of information, remember this: you have the power to choose. You choose what you consume, how you respond, and ultimately how you shape your own mind.
That's a powerful reminder. We're not just passive recipients of information, we're active participants in shaping our own experiences.
Exactly. So take breaks, be mindful, connect with nature, cultivate joy, and never underestimate the incredible power of your own brain to heal and grow.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of brain rot and doom scrolling. We hope you found it insightful and empowering. And remember, if you're looking for more incredible articles on health and fitness, be sure to visit zenfitpulse.com.
And to continue the conversation and become part of our amazing community, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive. We release new episodes every week exploring fascinating topics that will help you live a healthier, happier, and more fulfilling life.
Until next time, take care of yourselves, be kind to your minds, and remember, you have the power to choose.